Thank you very much for joining us. I'm here with Stephen Jenvey from Wellington, and Stephen is the CIO of Client Platforms.
Yes.
At Wellington. And yeah, we're delighted to have you here to talk about all the fun things you're working on. The place I actually want to start, though, is just a little bit about your background. Sure. So I'd love to hear how you even got started in finance.
It's totally unintentional to start with. I think I was at Durham University. I grew up in the UK, and I think they were the ones offering beer. It was Lehman Brothers. Actually, it was Shearson, Lehman, and Hutton at the time, who were run by American Express. And I think the thing that impressed me the most was that, unlike some of the consulting partners that were visiting us at the time, they actually spoke about technology and a lot of things that I was interested in. And I was a self-taught technologist dating back to I was like 8, 9 years old when my father he worked for IBM. He would bring a lot of tech home, and I would play with it. Very inquisitive little boy. I was into wire protocol stuff. I used to like sniffing things on wires, which got me in a lot of trouble sometimes. But they actually gave me a way to practice what I really enjoyed for a living. And I joined, and I was. It's one of those things I often tell people now when they ask about, especially during times like in our industry right now, where we're seeing a lot of churn internally, a lot of cost controls and efficiency. To the early career hires, like, just go for it. Because I had that opportunity. Shearson, Lehman, and Hutton became Lehman almost immediately because American Express spun us out. I was sent off to the US. My boss asked me if I had a passport.
Did you?
Here I am. I did, thank goodness. And there I was in Manhattan I was in my early 20s, allegedly for a 6-month project. And then 28 years later, I returned to the
Is it
UK.
really? You just returned?
I just returned a year ago.
Yeah, congratulations.
And, thank you. And I just threw in straight away into the deep end, and I got to work on the fixed protocol. I think I built the first engine, which was communicating between Fidelity and Lehman Brothers, an indication of interest with the fixed team. So to be able to say that was your first experience, and at the time having no idea what that meant, to then go on and work on things like ReadyBook, which became Arca, in my career, and then to transition into a lot of other different types of work was just great start.
You started off as an engineer.
I was an engineer.
But then you moved more into product. Yes,
over time. Again, I'd like to say that was intentional and designed, but as you'll probably find out from talking to me long enough, it wasn't. It was just an opportunity at the time. So yes, I think my experience, obviously, working with, say, back in when I was writing trading systems for a living, you did everything in those days. I would be in at the weekend running cable from the trading floor into the server room. And then you'd be testing new user features that the traders were asking for and designing them and writing the code and rolling them out. It was what we did at the time. And so that was my own personal issue. I just found that I enjoyed that. Yeah. And then as my career evolved, I was at Fidelity with the evolution of ReadyBook. I joined Fidelity, and I was offered a chance to work in their lab. It's a world-renowned lab, and that's where I really first got exposed to this idea of experience around product and how this concept of building something that humans, millions of humans, so it was like the Marcus, this idea that you can do that for a living. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And the lab gave me that experience. I remember one day walking around, Ned Johnson, for those of you who know the Fidelity family, run by the Johnson family. I had an opportunity to work with Ned quite closely over the years, and he would say to me about client experience, for example, and product. He said that the reason why he builds his investor centers the way he does, and his offices and the employee experience, this is back in early 2000s, was because it sets the bar for how you think about your clients. And again, that had a huge influence on me. And as I went on eventually to start working with some early career firms and then ultimately into venture capital, which got me out of technology and into product, when I came back to Fidelity proper, I started working on Fidelity.com in sort of a business capacity as a product manager, working on whole aspects, the brokerage aspects of their site. began to then see the impacts that design could make on how users behave and how you can help them get to better outcomes through design. So I'm not going to repeat the Marcus discussion, but that's basically a lot of synergy I had with what he was sharing.
Yeah. And how long have you been at Wellington?
I have only been at Wellington 2.5 years. Okay. I came from actually the West Coast, so I went from New York to Boston, so 11 years in Boston. And then I was recruited actually from Boston to Orange County, California. So that was quite a bit of a trek. I've been around. And I was living in Laguna Beach, California for 11 years. My sons went from Mass Holes in Massachusetts to Surfer Kids. I have 2 boys, and they're still there. They won't leave. Have you ever seen The Truman Show? You know, you wake up every day and there's the sun. It's like that. It's like every day. And it gets tiring. You know, it's like December and you're outside in the cafe eating lunch. It's like, anyway, yes.
But we digress.
We digress. Okay. Yeah, so I worked there, and my involvement, that's when I went back into technology. I found a way that they offered a digital transformation role for me to really think about how Capital at that time could take their core they were commission-based sort of wealth business into much more of a digital-first model, which I was very deeply involved with.
Yep. And you've been using OpenFin at Wellington.
Yes.
And could you just tell us a little bit about that use case and
Sure. It's actually growing. And it's one of the reasons why. So my predecessor here is Madeline. For those of you who know Madeline, Madeline is retiring, lucky her, and she is transitioning from the partnership right now. And she asked me to take her seat and sort of to really get engaged with OpenFin on behalf of Wellington going forward. And I warmly accepted, because one of the things that impressed me when I joined the firm 2.5 years ago was the use of sort of that inner source paradigm, but leveraging and engaging with open source, which in my prior company was really hard. I mean, it was very hard to get through the regulatory, to get through the lawyers internally, to do a lot of that work. So we basically if you think Wellington, for those who don't know, we're a largely institutional provider in the US. We do have a European and an Asian presence where we have a growing wealth business, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here. But the primary business, we call ourselves like a boutique of boutiques. We're about 50 boutiques that focus on everything from long equity, fixed income, hedge funds, derivatives, venture capital, private equity, credit, whatever you want, we have it. And so you can imagine the types of workflows, as we've been talking about already, that each of those boutiques will have. So now imagine you're a product manager that's trying to bring together all of those pieces, and imagine that workflow. So even within our own firm, you can see how the value that OpenFin can bring. And that is the primary use case. So when you open up your laptop, we call it Mosaic. All the tiles are there. All those tiles are completely interoperable across each of the boutiques. And my involvement now going forward is that I have brought that into the client side. So we have a co-CIO model. We have our investment platform, which does what the investment platform does. It gets conviction, trading, the packaging. And then we have the client platform, which does everything from that point all the way through. So the creation of the products and our funds and our fund companies, to how we then market them, distribute them, and service our clients, and all of the operations underneath that. That's on my side. So I look at what they've done, and they say, well, look, I've got product managers who have very, very similar workflows. And they're looking at the same pane of glass in a lot of cases that the investors are. So what if we were to model their workflows using OpenFin? We've extended that. And the new frontier for us, as we, especially in Europe where we've been in the wealth channel now for about 5 years, this concept of client portals, which I'm sure some of the asset managers in this place will know, that they are the bane of our existence. They are not the most client-friendly or user experience friendly. No one really wants to use them. That if you think about how you could then, instead of having a client have to go to 10 different portals for every single money manager that they work with, what if you could actually provide, as we do, a lot of our client data via API, but provide that in the context of a a container that would be contextually aware with the tools that they're using, whether that be InvestNet, FactSet, whatever they're using. And where they can manage and model the way they look at our products, not just the way that we want them to. So that's something I'm directing my teams to look at right now. And that's an early area of research for us.
Fantastic. Super exciting.
Yeah, it is. Very excited about it.
I know you're also doing quite a bit of work around AI.
Yes.
Could you maybe just start with just what's your overall strategy when it comes to AI and I guess Gen AI?
Do we have a strategy? First of all, that's a good question. Yes, we do. So we started something we call it was like the Digital Experts Network or something. It was a really interesting, very esoteric group from around the company, starting with our CEO, Gene Hines, president of the client platform, Steve Clark, myself, a bunch of others. We had a risk guy in there. We had some of our open source developers were in there. But the idea was that we would at least just brainstorm ideas to start with, and a bunch of themes began to emerge. So we have a strategy around how our investors are really amplifying what they do in their workflows using AI. And I'm not going to talk much about that because it's very sort of proprietary to us. But as you start looking at the two other areas that my teams have been very closely working on, and this is on the client side, and we've expanded actually into a lot of our core operations as well. Two main areas of focus have emerged where we see immediate sort of viable, whether it's better user experience or cost-effective solutions. One is where you have a lot of standard operating procedure type work. So L1 support. Who loves working with support? It's one of those necessarily evils. You can provide a really good user experience, we found, using large language models very quickly. The second one that we've been focusing on is around content creation. And much like most other asset management, it's a myth that we are just money managers. We're actually content publishers. In my last firm, I think we were one of the largest content publishers in the US around financial content. We had a print shop in Hampton Roads, Virginia. We used to output millions of magazines a year. It was crazy.
Can I ask you a quick question about that first use case? So is that the AI is doing the support, or is that like human in the loop enabling the human?
And that's a really good question. So if you think about where we start, so we have an infrastructure internally which we're using OpenAI through Microsoft. We run our own model connected to Microsoft. So we leverage all of ChatGPT's model with our own over a secure line. And we've been exposing what we call Welly to a lot of internal content.
Welly?
Welly, yes.
Okay, nice.
Very original.
Is that an IE or
it's whatever you want it to be. I think the way we branded it was W. You can ask it. Yeah. That's what it prefers. I have done that. It said it didn't have a preference. It actually said I asked it for its pronouns, and it said I was stupid for asking such a dumb question. It's got a personality. But what we trained it on a lot of different sets. So this idea of standard operating procedures, we got there, like I think most innovation, in the most very sort of haphazard way. So we started by training it on all customer-facing content that we'd ever written that was stored in our regulatory systems. And it found a voice. We had sort of our external client voice. It was also reading all of our investor emails, where our investors publish content every day. So it was them beginning to sort of started to learn how we sort of intrinsically write to each other. So when we started on the standard operating procedure type work, we trained it initially on our code of ethics. And initially there was a user in the middle. It was a standard operation team in India. It was actually a large team. We have a fairly strong code of ethics practice. We have almost everyone in the firm is covered. 3,500 people, hitting up about 30 professionals, compliance professionals, asking them anything from what brokers were you allowed to work with to some really complex questions around certain instruments that you can buy and sell. And typically they get back to you within a day, and with a well thought out answer. We, within 3 weeks, found a couple of things during that exercise where we said if they can get to 90% accurate answers, which the team were using to respond to these sort of emails, we're going to switch it. We're going to go automate and reduce the team by 90%. And we thought we might get to that within 6 months. We did it in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So this idea, once you've sort of done the training, and this is the thing that got us there, I remember calling a guy who works for me, he's my sort of chief architect, saying, what the hell have you done? I've just run a test, and he's just got this beautifully formatted email. I don't believe any of the standard procedure team in India had that type of beautiful formatting. He said, I don't know. It's a byproduct of some of the other training that we had done. Oh. And we have this weird thing at Wellington where all the bullets are indented and the first sentence is bolded. It started doing that. Huh. And the formatting was perfect, and the voice was sort of that internal Wellington voice that we've all sort of had. And it's now, yes, within 3 weeks, it is now running and now we've added a chat feature to Teams. Mm-hmm. We've added an embedded widget component within Mosaic, our OpenFin environment. Wow. And it's up and running. And now we're looking at...
Were you able to replace?
Yes, we've replaced 90% of the SOP team.
Wow.
And now we're looking at going into other types of standard operating procedure work, like L1 support, compliance, risk, and others. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we're just about out of time. I'd love to hear your 2025 priorities or some of the key ones for you.
Interesting. We're going through a big strategy lift right now, so we have some of those are still being formed, but I'll share a couple of mine. I think one for me is this, what we displayed earlier around the client and changing the way we engage with our clients. So we spent the last 2.5 years sort of reimagining our digital stack and technology, working with our marketing teams and sort of helping them upskill, because we've gone from a very much in-person institutional type model where it was golf and martinis, and we're sort of moving much more into a digital first type model, from everything from brand marketing, lead generation, sales enablement, servicing. And so we've spent a lot of time investing in new technologies and new capabilities and operating models that for the next year, it's bringing it together. Yep. So you're going to see, you'll see a lot of what we're doing is around those client experiences. We'll begin to start push. That's one big shift. That's one big push for me. And then the second one is around content. So as I said, we produce so much content. And this idea of not just incorporating AI into content, but the idea that you can break down content into much smaller component pieces and then start bringing those pieces together and delivering it to any channel, to any client, based on who they are, where they are, on their relation, reflect that relationship with us, I've always found compelling, and we're doing a lot of work in that area. And then you overlay the power of AI on top of that, and then you've got something really interesting. So that's a big other area of focus for me next year.
Oh, super exciting.
Thank you.
Well, we're just going to close with a rapid fire questions for you.
These are the ones you didn't send me via email, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So easy one, favorite sports team?
Harlequins, I'm a rugby fan.
Okay. Favorite restaurant? Could be
well,
London or anywhere.
Well, I'm going to say it hasn't been beaten yet. So if you ever watch Top Chef on Bravo, and it's in the US, but they have it here, Amar Santana's Broadway in Laguna Beach. He came second in the 2018 Top Chef. Very good.
Nice. And the most important question, your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, well, here we go. So how many people remember Rocky Horror? So I'm going to get up. No, I'm not. Sweet Transvestite. In drag.
Excellent. Well,
and if you were in the Dominion Theatre on Tottenham Court Road last Saturday, that was me.
Wow, I'm very disappointed I missed that.
Sorry.
Great note to end on. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.